looking at my essay note,
Bless you.
roughly negative 60. So let's say this is my negative 60, okay? It's going to go upward. Upward meaning what? Upward what? Up where?
Charging plus.
Morgan? We're going to begin to get more positive. So that means if I need to get more positive, this number pulls, my line pulls away from the negative 60. Now, if I'm going more positive, I'm getting more positive because pluses are moving in. So everybody remember that, okay? So when that occurs, when it gets more positive, I am depolarizing my cell. Does everybody remember that? All right. Now, as this occurs with the SA node, it's termed pacemaker potential because it is going to make that SA node have the potential to fire. Okay? Now, when it reaches its threshold, my threshold for the SA node is negative 40. What happens in muscle cell as well as nervous when that influx of the sodium ions takes it to threshold? What happens? Huh? Y'all gotta speak up. Well, the channels are open because the sodium is rushing in. But if I have now taken my negativity to that positive point, which is still negative, to that positive point, which is now threshold, what happens?
Repolarization.
Huh? The contraction, the firing, whatever we're referring to, occurs. You cannot stop it. So if I get enough of my sodiums rushing in, and if I can get that SA node membrane potential to the minus 40, we're going to fire. If the SA node fires under normal circumstances, it follows the pathway we saw. Where the SA node fired, it traveled to the left atria and traveled down to the AV node, which sent it to the bundle of His, which sent it to the which sent it down the bundle fibers to the Purkinje fibers. And my heart, the cells contracted. Why is this that everybody's kind of sitting here looking at me with these looks on their faces like, what? Why is this important? Why is this, the movement of the ions, clinically significant?
What creates the blood flow? I mean,
If it stops,
Heart
it's
beat,
dead.
yeah.
Right. Or you're gonna sniff up the heart attack or
Do
something.
what?
Tell your heartbeat.
Deficiency in any of these ions is what prevents the heart from beating normally and properly.
Deficiency. If there is anything wrong in blood work with any of these ions, it will now affect the heartbeat. So as you sit here looking at me like, why do I need to know this? That's why you need to know this. because it is clinically significant. You are going to see this a lot when you move into your professional life. This is not something to forget. Actually, you don't need to forget anything from my class. But it is clinically significant. So, the process that occurs, my sodium gets to rush in. That takes me from being negative to less negative because it's an influx of positive ions. Now, when we reach threshold, look what else opens. Calcium. So we're going to have calcium as a major player for the heart. So calcium rushes in, channels rushing in. That takes my depolarization up to its peak, all right, which is 0. So my cells have now depolarized. They reach their peak. At this point, firing is occurring. And that impulse is now going to travel throughout the chambers of the heart. Once I reach my peak, we now are going to see potassium channels. Because inside my cell, do you guys remember how potassium would just kind of flow back and forth? Okay? Now, potassium channels are going to open and push potassium out. That is going to cause my cell to begin to drop back to being negative, and as it drops back down, it has to repolarize. Once it repolarizes, the process starts all over again. That is what has to occur at those cells of my SA node. Remember that the SA node is going to be modified cardiac cells. When that firing takes place, it is now the heartbeat. SA node is our pacemaker. This should be occurring usually about every 0.8 seconds. That SA node depolarizes, repolarizes, heart set off the firing, depolarizes, 0.8 seconds. Any of y'all in here could keep up with 0.8? I can keep up with like 1. Like 1, 2, 3, 4. I can't do the 0.8, okay? But believe it or not, in the beating of the heart, 0.8 is a long time. It's really kind of cool, okay? So that firing of the SA node, like we saw on the previous slides, if this is my heart, all right, my atria, my ventricles. Do you guys remember how when that SA node fired, it sent it across both atria, then it sent it down to the AV node, which met the bundle of His, which traveled down the fibers and then began to move up into the Purkinje fibers. Yes, no, maybe? That's what's happening. That is what that SA node is doing. It takes about, once the SA node fires, 50 milliseconds for it to reach the AV node. So when the SA node fired in that right atrium, for it to get to the AV node at the base of the right atrium, it took it about 50 milliseconds. Now, if I couldn't do 0.8, I definitely can't figure out the milli, okay? But that is just enough of a delay so that when the atria contract, ventricles relax, and vice versa.
Wait, we say that one more time, son. I just want to write it down.
When the SA node fires, and it takes that 50 milliseconds to reach the AV node, that is just enough time to make atria, while the atria are contracting, the ventricles relax. And when the ventricles contract, atria relax. They do not contract and relax at the same time. Yet, when my heart beats, it looks like it's one action. Is that not amazing? Or is it just me? And your heart is sitting here doing that 70 to 80 times per minute. Think about it. Holy cow, it's just amazing. Okay? Now, once we hit the AV node, we've got to slow that signal down just a little bit more. And the reason for that is because we have to have time for the blood to move through the chambers. Now, what in the world does that mean? When the blood comes back to the heart, it comes back to atria, and it has to go from atria to ventricles, and we are dependent on this contraction and relaxation to help it flow, so to speak, to help it move. All right? So, when we look at what's taking place, even though we had the SA node go to the AV node, go to the bundle, go down the bundle, go into Purkinje fibers, and as we travel from one to the other, it slows down just a little bit more, because what it's going to do, it's allowing for the filling of the ventricles to occur, and then taking that blood that moved into the ventricles and then push it out in the directions in which it needs to go. So, when we talk about that contraction, like I keep mentioning, okay, I think I've mentioned this quite a few times, the contraction starts at the apex. So when you look at the heart as it is situated in the chest, okay, when you look at it, that apex, the little peak, it's to the left, all right? And when the contraction starts, it starts at that base and it does a spiral motion, which is why I keep doing this number. Okay? Because that's what it looks like. It looks like it just starts at that base and twists all the way up and back out. And it's amazing, you know, if you stop and think about that.